The year 1644 was not just the end of a dynasty. It was the death of an entire world. While history books often describe the fall of the Ming as a slow decline, the reality was a frantic, blood-soaked scramble for survival. In the heart of the Forbidden City, the last Ming Emperor, Chongzhen, climbed a lonely hill and ended his life. But his death was only the beginning of a much darker story, one of broken oaths, secret pacts, and a betrayal so profound it would change the face of Asia forever. But how did one of history's most powerful empires vanish almost overnight? To find the answer, we must look beyond the official records and into the shadows of the Great Wall. By the early 1640s, the Ming Empire was a hollow shell, rotting from within. A devastating combination of the Little Ice Age and systemic corruption had left the peasantry starving, eating bark, grass, and eventually, things much worse. As the central government raised taxes to fund failing wars, a former postal clerk named Li Zicheng saw an opportunity. He didn't just lead a rebellion, he became a symbol of divine retribution. His peasant army swept through the provinces like a tidal wave, fueled by the desperation of millions who felt the Ming had lost the mandate of heaven. Inside the palace walls, the emperor was isolated, surrounded by eunuchs who lied about the scale of the disaster. The silver that once flowed from the Americas had dried up, causing a catastrophic economic collapse. The empire's soldiers hadn't been paid in months, and their loyalty was for sale to the highest bidder. It was a perfect storm of misery. And yet, the greatest threat wasn't the rebels within the gates. It was the predator waiting patiently just outside the Great Wall, watching the house burn before moving in for the kill. While the Ming were crumbling, a new power was forging itself in the freezing forests of Manchuria. These were the Jurchen, later known as the Manchu, a warrior culture that had been transformed by a visionary leader named Nuhati. He didn't just build an army, he built the 8 Banners, a social and military machine that turned every Manchu man into a professional soldier. His successor, Hong Taiji, was even more dangerous. He understood that to conquer China, he couldn't just be a barbarian invader, he had to become a Chinese emperor. He adopted the name Qing, meaning pure, and began recruiting disillusioned Ming officials and generals. They didn't just bring their swords, they brought the secrets of Ming gunpowder and administration. The Manchu were no longer a tribal raid. They were a government in exile, waiting for the right moment to strike. They cultivated a network of spies and sympathizers within the Ming court, slowly eroding the empire's will to fight. The stage was set for a confrontation at the ultimate barrier, the Shanhaiguan Pass. But would the Great Wall hold? Or would it be opened from the inside? In May of 1644, the fate of 100 million people rested on the shoulders of one man, General Wu Sangui. He stood at the Shanhaiguan Pass, the narrow gateway between the Manchu armies and the heart of China. To his back, the rebel Li Zicheng had already captured Beijing and claimed the throne. To his front, the Qing Prince Dorgan waited with 100,000 elite horsemen. Wu Sangui was trapped in a nightmare. If he joined the rebels, he would be serving a peasant thief who had allegedly kidnapped his favorite concubine, the legendary beauty Chen Yuanyuan. If he joined the Manchu, he would be a traitor to his race. The decision he made would haunt Chinese history for centuries. He chose the unthinkable. Wu Sangui opened the gates of the Great Wall and invited the Manchu in. Many historians argue this wasn't just a military alliance, it was a business transaction. In exchange for the throne, the Qing promised Wu Sangui wealth and power beyond his wildest dreams. The invincible Great Wall had not been breached by force. It had been bypassed through a handshake. But did Wu Sangui realize he was signing the death warrant of his own culture? Or was he simply a man trying to survive in a world without heroes? While Wu Sangui was negotiating at the border, Beijing was descending into a literal hell. The rebel army had breached the outer walls, and the sounds of looting and fire filled the air. Inside the Forbidden City, Emperor Chongzhen realized the end had come. In a final desperate act of honor, he reportedly killed his own daughters to save them from the rebels before walking to a small hill overlooking his palace. There, he tied a silk sash to a pagoda tree, and ended the Ming Dynasty with a final gasp. He left a note, written in blood on his robe, begging the rebels to spare his people, though he blamed his ministers for his failure. For 40 days, the rebel Li Zicheng sat on the dragon throne, but his victory was an illusion. He was so busy looting the capital that he failed to see the storm approaching from the north. When Wu Sangui and the Manchu cavalry arrived, the rebels stood no chance. The professional Manchu banners cut through the peasant ranks like a scythe through wheat. Beijing didn't fall to a conqueror. It was simply passed from one hand to another in a sea of fire. Conquering the capital was easy. Conquering the Chinese soul proved much more difficult. To solidify their control, the Qing imposed a decree that remains one of the most infamous in history, the Q Order. Every man in China was ordered to shave his forehead and wear his hair in a long braid, or Q in the Manchu style. The ultimatum was simple: keep your hair and lose your head, or lose your hair and keep your head. To the Chinese, who viewed their hair as a sacred gift from their ancestors, this was more than a fashion choice. It was a soul-crushing humiliation. Resistance was met with industrialized slaughter. In cities like Yangzhou and Jiading, the Qing conducted massacres that claimed hundreds of thousands of lives in just days. The streets literally ran red with blood. These weren't just military actions, they were psychological operations designed to break the spirit of the Ming loyalists. This period of forbidden history is often sanitized in modern accounts, but the reality was a brutal occupation. The Manchu were a tiny minority ruling over a vast majority, and they knew that only through terror and cultural erasure could they survive. But would this iron fist be enough to stop the dying embers of the Ming from reigniting? For 30 years, Wu Sangui ruled southern China as a semi-independent king, a reward for his betrayal. But the Qing never fully trusted the man who had opened the gate. When the young, brilliant Kangxi emperor began to strip Wu of his power, the old general did the only thing he knew how to do. He betrayed his masters, again. In 1673, Wu Sangui declared the revolt of the three feudatories, claiming he wanted to restore the Ming and drive out the barbarians he had personally invited in. It was a move of staggering hypocrisy. For a moment, it looked like he might succeed. The south rose with him, and the Qing Empire teetered on the edge of collapse. However, the mandate of heaven had truly shifted. Wu Sangui died of illness mid-rebellion, and the Qing systematically dismantled his forces. They even exhumed his body, scattered his ashes, and executed his entire family. The man who had been the Qing's greatest ally became their most hated enemy. His legacy was erased from the official records, leaving him as a man without a country, a traitor to everyone he ever served. The Qing would go on to rule China for 268 years, expanding the empire to its greatest territorial extent. But they did so by rewriting the past. They launched a massive literary inquisition, destroying thousands of books that mentioned the Manchu as barbarians or praised the Ming. They created a version of history where their rise was inevitable and peaceful, a lie that stood for centuries. We have to wonder, what if Wu Sangui had kept the gates closed? Would China have industrialized earlier? Would the centuries of isolation and eventual humiliation by Western powers have been avoided? The fall of the Ming wasn't just a change in leadership, it was a pivot point that sent China down a different path. Today, the scars of 1644 are hidden beneath the grandeur of the Qing palaces we see in Beijing. But the truth remains buried in the silence of the Great Wall, a reminder that empires don't always fall because of their enemies. Sometimes, they are simply sold by the people who were supposed to protect them. History is rarely a clean story of good versus evil. It is a messy web of choices made in the dark. If you want to uncover more of the secrets the history books left out, make sure to subscribe to the Eerie Historian. We'll be back next week to dive into another chapter of the past that they tried to bury. Until then, keep questioning the official story. Thank you for watching.